The first issue, which we've had no debate about in this province, are the economics and policy implications of hydraulic fracking for tight oil and shale gas. What the hell are we doing this for? What are we actually getting? What are the royalty returns? And what are the social costs of promoting this activity in the province? I mean, who's going to pay? Who's going to be sacrificed? What's going to happen to our roads? What's going to happen to our groundwater? What's going to happen to our surface water? What's going to happen to our productive agricultural landscape? What's going to happen to ranching communities on the eastern slopes? We never even asked those questions. And so you've got water, you've got your proppants, and then you've got your fluids. All right, the fluids serve all manner of different purposes. Some are biocides, some are inhibitors, some are gels, some are there to control iron, some are there to keep the well open and not freeze up, and so you end up using millions and millions and millions of this. Here's a great little Halliburton picture of a frac where you're horizontally drilling, and you do these fracs in stages. Now, as I mentioned, Halliburton started this whole procedure of hydraulic fracking back in 1949, and industry will tell you, well, this is a proven technology. Well, the only thing proven about it is that you know that by using it, you can actually produce more oil and gas out of formation. Everything else about hydraulic fracking has not been proven. Originally, to generate the horsepower you needed to do this, we were using Allison aircraft engines after World War II. Put them on trucks, and they would go to frac sites and provide the horsepower. Here's the horsepower today, where some of these trucks will be transporting up to 25,000 horsepower capability to help generate the frac down the border. They are really mechanical, high-energy cities. It's an astounding sight to see this. Just think of the energy that is being marshaled to fracture these formations, to release small amounts of methane. So what are the horsepower requirements today? Well, they're up to 11 million horsepower pumping ability. And you're probably thinking, oh, what the hell is that equal to? That's equal to 11 Daiichi 740 megawatt nuclear reactors in Japan. So this industry in North America alone is now using the power equivalent of 11 nuclear reactors to frack throughout the continent. I mean, that is extraordinary. And so that also is a big emissions issue, right? Because what are they using to frack? Well, they're using electricity, they're using horsepower, they're using diesel, you've got a lot of emissions associated with this kind of activity. And so what happened? We had this explosion of activity back around 2000, 2001, 2002, as industry recognized that they were running out of conventional oil, they were running out of conventional gas. Peak oil is very much a part of this whole story. And they thought, what are we going to do? And so they started fooling around with these fracs to see if they could squeeze more out of the resource. And sure enough, they got very, very good results in some formations. And then they just hammered these formations. And regulators couldn't keep up, landowners couldn't keep up, nobody could keep up with the scale of the activity that exploded across the landscape in Texas, in Wyoming, in Colorado, in northern BC, in Pennsylvania. And so ProPublica, which is a very good investigative journalism outfit, did a series of investigations. And one of the things they found was 21 of 31 drilling states had no regulations on hydraulic fracking because it had never been used before on this scale. 4 of 31 states had some regulations. 10 drilling states required that fracturing chemicals be disclosed, something that has still not happened in Saskatchewan, Alberta, or British Columbia. And 0 states surveyed required that the volume of fluid left underground after fracturing be recorded. So what the hell are you putting down there? What are you getting back? And where the hell is all that stuff going? because we're talking about millions and millions of gallons of water and sand and chemical fluid. The other thing that was quite obvious to the investigators at ProPublica was the inability of regulators to catch up with this industrial charge. So you can look at the top there, you see the number of wells being drilled, and at the bottom you look at the number of enforcement staff since 2004. I mean, so drilling went up 41%, enforcement only went up 9%. So the Texas Railroad Commission in Texas, the Louisiana Oil Commission, the Arkansas Oil Commission, the Oklahoma Oil Commission, the Colorado Oil and Gas Commission, they're all caught off guard. They didn't have the staff to police, to regulate, to protect the public interest. Now there are a whole bunch of issues here, and I'm going to run through them, and some of them are really dramatic. The first issue, which we've had no debate about in this province, are the economics and policy implications of hydraulic fracking for tight oil and shale gas. What the hell are we doing this for? What are we actually getting? What are the royalty returns? And what are the social costs of promoting this activity in the province? I mean, who's going to pay? Who's going to be sacrificed? What's going to happen to our roads? What's going to happen to our groundwater? What's going to happen to our surface water? What's going to happen to our productive agricultural landscape? What's going to happen to ranching communities on the eastern slopes? We never even asked those questions. But when you talk to someone like David Hughes, David Hughes is not an environmentalist, by the way. David Hughes is a coal specialist. He's a member of the Association for the Study of Peak Oil, as I am, and worked for Natural Resources Canada for more than 30 years, probably one of the most astute oil and gas analysts in the country. And here's David Hughes and his concerns about shale gas, and it would also apply to tight oil. He said, look, conventional gas wells typically decline by 25 to 40% in their first year of production, whereas shale gas wells decline at much higher rates, typically between 63 and 85%. So we're drilling more and more, and we're getting less and less. So, you know, how far do we want to go on this treadmill? And as Hughes puts it, look, shale gas is expensive gas, and it is an exercise in creating greater complexity with lower and lower returns. And we've had the American government, and we've had oil and gas analysts in Houston and Texas saying, you know what? The amount of shale gas and tight oil companies claim they now have access to has been grossly overestimated, and that there's a lot of hubris in these numbers. And all of that is true. Now what about water? Probably the most critical issue. Here we know that the community of Estevan, and these are figures from St. Gilles Corporation, which is a fracking company based here in Calgary, says, you know, that the good folks of Estevan use 23,000 cubic meters of water. That's for 13,000 people. And this community, of course, is in the Bakken shale play, which is a tight oil shale play, just like the shale play that is taking place here in the Cambrian in the eastern slopes. And here's the Bakken, and here's what Bakken is using, and I think these numbers are wildly conservative. 100,000 cubic meters of fresh water a year. So the industry is using 5 times what the citizens of Estevan are using. That's just one estimate. Now, what about one frac? How much water is used per one frac? These are statistics I've taken from a recent report to President Obama on fracking. And one frac is 1 to 5 million gallons. All right, 1 million gallons is about 3 or 4 million liters. So how much do average Canadians consume? 343 liters a day. So one frac is using enough water, fresh water, surface water, or groundwater, to serve between 11,000 and 55,000 Canadians. And again, then industry and government wonder why Quebec said no to this. Why New Brunswick and folks in Nova Scotia are upset about this.